So welcome to my allotment. Today I'm going to be going through the jobs that you can be doing in October. If you've not already subscribed to my channel, if you could please do so, because you'll get lots of helpful hints and tips all throughout the year from my home garden, my allotment and also my home kitchen. Now it's really easy to think that there's not a lot going on in October, but there are still plenty of jobs you can be doing on your allotment or in your home garden. Now one of the things you could be doing is you could split your rhubarb if you wanted to do that. So if you wanted to put some more rhubarb somewhere else on your plot, or you wanted to give some to a friend or a family member, now's a good time to start splitting it. The seasons are changing, but you do still get some really quite nice warm days, to be fair, so you can get a lot done this time of year, and the ground's still really soft when you're trying to tidy up and prune and things like that. Mulching and composting are a really good thing to do, so you can start putting well rotted compost onto your garden to prepare the ground for next year. You can also be turning over your composters and obviously creating more compost and breaking that down. And again, you know, if you leave it too long, it starts to get too cold and you don't want to do those jobs. Whereas now, although it's quite breezy and it's quite cold first thing in the morning, now it's actually quite warm, so it's a really good time to still get some of those jobs done. So as we move down the allotment, it's far easier to show you what I'm actually doing rather than just tell you about it. As you can see, my fruit cage this time of year starts to look a bit bedraggled, so at some point over the next few months I will need to attack that, but there really is no rush with that. So if you've got that kind of situation that I've got, which we get every single year, where it looks a little bit crazy at the end of the season, there's plenty of time to be sorting that out. Things I will be doing now is still a bit of tidying up and a little bit of weeding. So where you've still got crops in the ground, keeping the ground tidy and weeded is still really important, and also keeping stuff covered, you know, checking that all your staking is good, because as you can fit, it's quite windy today, things are more likely to blow everywhere. Things have grown more than the frames. For instance, my kale is bigger than the frame I initially put there, despite it being labelled up as dwarf kale on the seed packet. It has clearly not recognised that and it's overshooting, so I need to redo that area. A lot of my netting is all kind of topped over where I've lifted it up, not put it back properly, so I need to just generally go around and just do almost like a safety check to make sure everything's strapped down so it doesn't blow away, everything's still protected, things aren't going to fall over because they're not staked properly, all that kind of thing. There's also lots of things you can be harvesting in October, believe it or not. We all seem to think that all the harvesting happens in the summer months. Actually, there's an awful lot to be harvesting in October. You know, I can start harvesting my leeks, because some of those are big enough. I won't harvest them all. I'll literally just dig the larger ones and let the other ones fill out, because these will be feeding me right through to the spring. Beetroots, I see a lot of people just digging all their beetroots up because they think they're going to go woody, when as a general rule of thumb, my experience is only the larger ones go woody. So while I'll pick out the larger ones, the smaller ones, if I'm not ready to eat them yet, I'll just leave them in the ground and pick them when I want them. The only real damage is possibly slug damage, but you have to weigh that up against digging it all up and not getting any use out of it. Or staging it. I prefer to use the garden as my natural larder as much as I possibly can. So yeah, I mean, you'll probably find that once you start digging them out, they won't stay in the ground that long. So if you dig a few every few weeks, they will all just gradually go and you won't have anything left. Carrots are the same. I've still got some of those in the ground, which I can still harvest. Lots of lovely parsley, which I will. It's not really frost hardy, but again, that still stays there for quite a while. It doesn't just go when you get a little bit of frost. It's hardier than you think. And my potatoes, definitely will be digging up my potatoes in October, or at least I hope I get them all dug up. The reason you try and dig all your potatoes in October is they're more likely to get slug damage, wireworm. They're going to start to deteriorate in the ground once you leave them past October. So make sure you get some good Hessian sacks or some cardboard boxes, and I will start digging them. You'll probably find that you will need to dig them. You won't get them all up in one day. It'll probably take you 2 or 3 attempts, but do make sure you store them in a cool, dark place and take out any damaged ones and eat those first. So the other thing that I will be starting to cut in October are my, or I will be getting them all in. If you've got any pumpkins, squashes, those will need to come up. I do still try and leave them out for as long as possible, because the more they stay out and they naturally mature on the plant, they store much better. That being said, once you get a chance of frost, you do need to get them in. What you're looking for is for the stems to actually, because as you'll see here, the stem hasn't died out, it's still really, really green here. So that ideally needs to stay on the plant. If I had to cut that, because I thought there was going to be a frost, I'd cut a long stem on it. I wouldn't cut it right up to the top, because it's more likely to rot if you cut it too close to the stem. If we move over, I'll show you what you're waiting for them to do. So these ones here, as you can see, the stems have all died off, you know, going up to there, and this means that they've ripened more, they've cured more, they're more likely to keep. So these ones, I could cut these and take them home, but even if I do take them home, when there's still no chance of frost, I'll leave them out in my garden on my table to start to, you know, so the sun fuels them even more. Because the more sun they get, until you store them, the better they will keep, I promise you. Because I intend to be eating my squashes right through to the spring, into March and April. And the only way I'll do that is if I make sure that the skins have cured as well as I possibly can. So that's a tip for that. I will do some specific videos on potatoes and squashes, and you will find them in my videos somewhere, but for now I won't concentrate explaining it too much. And with my beans, believe it or not, I'm still getting lots of beans. If we just move around and have a look, so these will still be staying in the ground at the moment, because as you can see, I've got loads of bloom here, absolutely fantastic. And look at all those beans. I mean, this is October, can you believe? I know of a lot of people that when we had that really, really dry weather, they just ripped their beans up. They thought, that's it, it's a disaster, calamity. They pulled them all up and just gave up. Well, I didn't, because I know that they can easily recover, and I've got absolutely tons of bloom, loads more beans for me, absolutely everywhere. The other day I came up here and I picked quite a big bag full, which I froze, which again, it's going to see me through the winter, because the idea for me is that I live off the food off the allotment. You know, I want to keep as much as I can and make, you know, the best advantage. Digging stuff up early, you know, unless you've got a plan for that area, I kind of think, what's the point? You might as well leave it in there and get as much food off of it as possible. So that moves me on to the courgettes. And a similar thing here. Lots of people had already pulled their courgettes up, but I've still got courgettes coming. So, which I actually can't quite believe, because there was a point where they looked so tired. I've had some really big ones off of these recently, and now I've still got some more coming. That's not to say I'm going to get a lot, but again, these will still be staying in the ground until the frost gets them, and then I'll be clearing them away. So, as we move up, I just did a little bit of tidying up with the leaves with these spinach leaves the other day. What you're seeing now is after I've tidied it all up, I had some really like dead leaves around the outside, and they actually looked quite poorly, if I'm honest. And so if you've got any spinach like that where the leaves look a little bit tired and a bit horrid, just take all the dead ones out from the outside. You know, say if these didn't look good, take them out from the outside and you get loads of lovely new growth. It kind of almost regenerates them, which is exactly what that's done. When I took the leaves off from the outside that looked tired, they looked a little bit bare, but a week or two later they're all really, really vibrant, and I've got loads more chard to be eating. So I've got my Brussels and my purple sprouting in there. If I'm honest, it doesn't look like they're looking that healthy at the moment, but again, I've gone through there, I've given it a bit of a tidy up, I've taken some of the dead leaves off, and hopefully we will get some Brussels for Christmas and some purple sprouting for Christmas. And this is what I was talking about with the kale. I need to redo this, because as you can see, if I lift this off, it's starting to squash all the leaves down, and that's going to just kind of like hinder it from growing properly. So it's absolutely beautiful kale underneath there, but where the netting's squishing it down, it's going to stop it from growing properly. So I need to lift the caning up and have it a lot higher, so that these can still carry on growing all throughout the winter. And of course, there are some things you can be sowing and planting now. Now, I won't be doing that much, because as you can see, I've still got quite a lot in my allotment. It's actually going to see me through the winter. But the one thing I'm definitely going to be planting, and I must do every year, is garlic. So you must get it in October for it to stand the best chance of giving you some decent sized cloves. And I'll also be doing some overwintering Japanese onions as well. If you want more ideas of what to sow and plant, then there is a video that you can watch specifically on that. I do hope this video has been useful to you. If you've got any questions or queries, and let me know what you're doing at the moment, what you're sowing and planting and the jobs you're doing, that would be great to hear from you.